All right. Welcome to the, inaugural edition of the PMMetalGuide podcast, or I guess a rebirth of the PMMetalGuide podcast in a sense.
Yeah, this will be on the channel, I presume, on our same PMMetalGuide YouTube channel that we have a very limited number of content on so far.
Yes. So we figured, with release schedules and whatnot, we should do a better job of engaging our incredibly vast readership and viewership with PMMetalGuide content. So
Absolutely.
we figured, hey, we should record a weekly podcast and talk about music and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because it has an incredibly high barrier of entry, and I don't know, there's a lot to talk about regarding modern metal, and not too many voices talking about it. So
absolutely. For those of you who may be new to the channel or the readership, I'm Adam.
And I am Sam.
And we talk about metal and other stuff.
Yes, Adam typically writes articles and I typically edit them, but then that's it. We've been doing this blog for like 2 years now, which is kind of crazy.
It's been a long time.
And if you're looking for a taste of writing or whatnot, just Google PMMetalGuide, and it should be the first result, or a Twitter, which links to the blog. And I'd recommend our year-end post for 2019, because that's a nice substantial article that sort of gives nice thought-out takes on our opinions in modern metal and the modern music scene as a whole.
Yeah, that's about right.
And we've been trying to get out a weekly review every Wednesday, but it doesn't always happen, right, Adam?
It does not always happen. We're busy college students, and therefore sometimes things fall through. But we're trying to give as much consistent content as possible.
Literally all Adam's fault, by the way.
Don't worry. Stuff coming soon.
So these podcasts are going to take... they're going to be separated into 3 separate sections. The first of which we're going to talk about just what we've been listening to in the past week or so, some opinions on stuff like that, what's been on our mind. Then we're going to move on to a larger topic for the second portion, where I think the bulk of the podcast content will be. And finally, we'll wrap things off with just sort of a current event review of things happening in the metal sphere, or anything we might be looking forward to in the next week. I know there are a few awesome releases that should be coming this Friday that I'm excited for.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, what is our topic today then, Mr. Sam?
I think we're talking about the wonderful world of Rate Your Music Core and its sort of implications for the wider world of modern metal.
Okay.
Which is, I think it's a cool topic.
I agree. Well,
but before we get to that, we got to talk about what we've been listening to, because I listened to a lot of music this week.
Yeah, I listened to a good amount of music too. I don't think as much, to be honest, but we'll see.
Well, hey, Path of Exile's expansion came out, so
that's true.
You need some good gaming music for it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I just want to start off by saying I listened to the new Ulver album, and oh my god, it is atrocious. It's really just mediocre, like modern synth pop.
I don't know if I think it is mediocre, but I only listened to it a few times, mostly in passing. I haven't actively listened to it, which is kind of weird. But I can probably get where you're coming from, that it's not optimal or the best.
I think what made like the assassination of Julius Caesar from 2016 or 2017, a few years ago, really like compelling was like, the concept. It's like its use of dark and light motifs, and it really felt like an experience, and it felt like a band taking their like metal experience and turning it into like a powerful piece in a separate genre. And that's not something you see every day, and Oliver pulled it off really well. And I really enjoyed that album. And this album, after a few listens, it's not good. It's really not a huge fan.
Yeah.
How about you, Adam?
Well, the album, one of the albums that I've been listening to basically ad nauseum is the new Fawn Limbs album, which was mixed by Pedram of Frontierer.
Oh, really?
As well as the second or third to last and last track have vocals from the Frontier vocalist on it.
Are Fond Limbs from Scotland?
No, Fond Limbs are from like somewhere in America, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania.
There we go.
They're a Pennsylvania mathcore band for those who don't know.
Is it really mathcore? I
Yes.
feel like it's more like grindcore.
Well, I would call it math grind, definitely. And, you know, there's definitely stuff on this album that I'm like, oh wow, that's a big car bomb moment, or oh wow, that's just grindcore. But I will say that compared to their last and debut album that came out last year, this one is like way heavier. And the mix,
really?
Yeah, the
other one was pretty damn heavy.
Well, the other one was heavy, but this one with the Frontierer mixing on it is just like, it's just grindcore Frontierer.
Well, I mean, I know the other one had a lot of like really esoteric influences. There was a lot of like black metal on it too.
There's not as much as that here, but I really like this album. The Sleeper Vessels is the name of the album. It came out.
Sleeper Vessels?
Yeah, it just came out on Friday, and and it's only like a half hour, so it's super easy to listen to.
Is it like grindcore track length?
Oh yeah, no. There's 13 tracks. There's one track that goes above 3 minutes, or two tracks that go above 3 minutes.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, I mean, I knew it came out. I just haven't checked it out. I definitely will. I mean, I liked their album from last year. I mean, it's not necessarily my favorite genre ever, but I'm sure, like, you know, good music's good music.
Yeah, good music.
So. Speaking of good music, I, for some reason, listened to the entire Gojira discography this week.
Okay.
I was like, you know, just playing a lot of video games, and for very repetitive grinding, like you do in ARPGs, you kind of want something like, I don't know, just quintessentially metal.
Sure.
And Gojira, they do that well. I will say their first two albums, like, I remember listening to them a few years ago and like, oh my god, this is so heavy, this is so incomprehensible. But their first two albums are really just like, it's like, I don't know, it's like groove-based tech death, except with like, it has like a hard rock sensibility. I don't know. It's really like, after listening to metal for a bit longer, it really is. Their first two albums are a little tame, I guess, compared to what I thought they sounded like, but they're pretty good. I do want to make the case that From Mars to Sirius, their 2005 efforts, definitely their best album. In the past, I liked The Way of All Flesh and L'Enfant Sauvage, but they just really don't flow nearly as well as From Mars to Sirius, I think, in retrospect.
I think most of the internet would agree with you with that.
Yeah, it's just like, the later albums have bangers, but Mars to Sirius is just like front to back great. And all the songs have wonderful climaxes, which is something I know I love in my music.
Yeah.
Like, I've been learning From the Sky on guitar, and like that ending is so fucking sick. It's so cool. And like it's also great like walk into class music because it's very energetic, and I don't know. Gojira's cool. Magma's a really bad album.
What about the new one that's probably coming next year? Probably.
Oh my, I don't know. I'm sure our listeners have heard Another World, the hit single by French tech groove pioneers. Oh my god, it's atrocious. Yeah, I can honestly say Gojira's career is I don't know. They're great live, but Magma's shit. And Another World is even worse.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's just very middling.
Yeah, it's like you have this band that's known for like their ability to mix like pummeling groove technicality with like moments of really like catchy heaviness, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then Magma's just like them, like, what if we made a hard rock album? And then Another World's like, what if we made a shittier version of Magma? So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with most of those points.
I'm looking at your 3x3.
Absolutely, no, I have a lot, dude. Okay, so
I see the Einstürzende Zende, my boys.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Einstürzende Zende Neubauten for those of you who don't know, are like a
They're
German.
like the German noise band.
Yeah, they're a German industrial noise group from like all the way back in the 80s. And I listened to it once or twice, and I was like, this is really good. Just because it's so raw. And I don't mean raw in
their
sound,
first
because
album?
it is raw, yeah, it is raw in sound, but it's also just raw in, like, it feels primal, even if it's, like, the complete opposite of that, because it was recorded in a factory.
Yeah, no, it's a super cool story.
Yeah. So I think that Collapse is definitely unique, to say the very least.
And they're like super influential. Like I think like every modern noise band loves them. Some Neubauten.
Yeah, I gotta give it to this album. I didn't write it off at first, but I didn't really get it until you just sort of like sit there and you just let it happen. And it's a long album too. It's
like an hour and 20 minutes or something.
No, so
I think the song Collapse, like the title track, is like one of the best noise tracks ever. It's so good.
That's really cool. Definitely, yeah, it's really cool. That's it.
Solid album. They're dropping I think they just dropped a new album.
They did. They did.
Isn't it like synthwave or something?
Dude, it's art pop.
Dude, why does every noise group do this?
Dude, I couldn't tell you. I honestly don't know.
That's funny.
But yeah, so Collapse by Einsters and Neubauten. I guess check it out. It's like 30 years old. It's 40 years old almost, so like educate yourself. Yeah. All right, what do you have? What else do you want to talk about for this? I have a few things I still want to talk about.
Yeah, I got a few things. I want to say, like, I know Knocked Loose are like the modern hardcore darlings, but I really love A Different Shade of Blue, which is their album from last year. Like, it's just super derivative metalcore, like hardcore plus like metal influence with like shades of OSDM. Mm-hmm. But it's done so well. And like I said, I'm playing a lot of video games, and it's perfect gaming music because every song is like 3.5 minutes. They all have like the sickest call outs ever. Like, I've got a bone to pick with death. He's always following me around. Like stuff like that. It's just so like cathartic. So like, to quote Anthony Fantano, meat and potatoes, but in like the best way.
Sure.
And it's mixed super well. It's super punchy, and it's just, I don't know. It feels like what the genre should be, and I totally understand why they're like one of the biggest bands in hardcore.
Yeah, I get it.
And I don't know. Like I know last time we listened to this, you were like, "Yeah, this could be cooler if I was listening to it really loud or live." But you know what? It's a great album, Adam.
I can believe it. I can't lie. I haven't listened to it myself, the album, but I'll get around to it. I will. And I'll probably have a similar opinion. You know, it is just good for what it is, great for what it is. Even, but yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. They're like the biggest. They're literally the biggest band in hardcore. So
well, whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, all right, Sam. So this is kind of gonna go hand in hand with our topic today. But have you heard of the group Katera?
Oh my, yeah, they. Okay. I have actually.
Okay, yeah. So
is it good?
So I saw. So for the record, for everyone at home, because I don't know who the hell this band was and where they came from, but Katera is a Brazilian one-piece melodic black metal project that has released 4 full-length albums in the last year and a half. Right? So
typical one-piece black metal project. Yeah,
typical one-piece black metal project. They're all all the albums are at least an hour long, long-form black metal, like 17-minute tracks, like 15-minute tracks, stuff like that. So I saw an album came out this April called insert like a Google Translate here.
Só quem viu o relâmpago à sua direita sabe.
Sorry, Portugal
Slow
fans.
clap.
Sorry, Portugal fans. I saw this existed, and I was like, okay, whatever. I'll probably listen to it at some point. Shove it into the spreadsheet, right? And then I was doing my radio show. We'll put the link in the description. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. But anyway.
Oh my god.
I was doing my underground segment of my radio show, and I had noticed, just out of nowhere, that this group had released another album, like last month, at the beginning of the month. It's a 3-track album. Toda Historia Pela Frente is the name of the album. It's 3 songs, all like 17 minutes, 12 minutes, and then 20 minutes. And I listened to it. Really awesome, like super engaging melodic black metal. That is like pretty hard to put down and kind of addictive. I've been listening to it pretty ad nauseum. And then I went back to the album that came out in April because I was curious. I'm like, okay, this album was good, so let's check out this one. And
Is that the one that's like number 28 on RYMcore?
Well, actually, so I just checked earlier today, and the one that was released last month is actually higher now than the other one, and is on the top chart for the year. But the one that came out in April is acoustic.
Really?
It's acoustic black metal. And honestly, when I heard it, I was like, this can't be real. Like, I'm being pranked. But no. It's an hour of acoustic black metal, and honestly,
like when you say acoustic black metal, like what do you mean?
Like, I mean black metal with no amps. It's an acoustic guitar.
That's weird.
It's really weird, but it's really good. Like, strangely good. Because it's like, it perfectly, at least to me, it fits that, like, Brazilian folk vibe that the whole thing gives off. So, like, you have, like, this weird mix of black metal and, like, samba, I guess. No, I know.
That's pretty good.
I know it sounds weird.
Hey, dude, it has 88 ratings on Rate Your Music,
dude,
so it must be pretty good.
It's pretty good. Definitely go check out both of the albums, but all their other work is, traditional black metal instrumentation. But I just think that one is particularly cool.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'll definitely... before... I just have a few more albums I'd like to mention.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a bunch of like the more well-regarded albums from Metal Underground from like the past month. Mm-hmm. So the Jupiterian release, really like that, which is like blackened sludge doom.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. I think they're also from Latin America.
They are. I think they're. Hold on.
I think they're from Brazil.
Probably. I think you're right. Yeah, they are from Brazil.
Yep. It's pretty good. It has a Marius Lewandowski artwork, so it's solid. Also, I've been really enjoying the Cytotoxin album.
Okay.
Like, serious Arcspire vibe. Like, it's perfect for what it is. It's like ridiculously technical, brutal death metal. And I don't know, I really like it.
Sure.
On the non-metal side of things, I've listened to a bunch of Cara Cara Bonito this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Who are like the best band ever.
Good gaming music.
Great gaming music. And I also listened to a fair amount of AJJ. So
okay. Sure.
I know Adam loves folk punk.
Oh yeah, so much.
I really like those albums, and it was that's my week. Just modern metal and like Cara Cara Bonito. So.
Sure. Well, I guess I can wrap up to a few others that I want to mention on the heavier side of things. Would be the new Unleash the Archers that came out a few weeks ago. I've still been spinning that.
A month and a half ago, you mean?
That's a few weeks. That's like 7 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. Still wicked good. Actual good power metal. Existing.
No way. Well, it's honestly like kind of more melodic death than power metal, and that's why it's good.
True. But, Yeah, definitely cool, epic, like, I don't know. Like,
I feel like most people listening know who Unleash the Archers are. They're pretty big.
Raise your sword and go fight something. I don't know. I don't care.
The Langdon Hickman review on Invisible Oranges, I think, did a really great job of like explaining why the music worked so well.
Yeah, go read that. Don't.
No, it's like he's like, well, all these musicians are amazing, and they actually focus on making good music instead of just wanking.
Yes, yeah, that is exactly what they do. They write power metal for, I guess, a metal listener, which is actually surprising. You'd think it would happen more, but it doesn't.
You never. What do you? That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Additionally, I've been kind of getting into Orchid recently. And for anyone who doesn't know,
dude, you're pretty cool.
Look, they're really good proto screamo emo violence that just goes absolutely hard.
I think Orchid are actually second wave emo screamo.
Is that even possible? It cannot.
Yeah, well, because it started in like the early '90s, and Orchids started releasing stuff in the late '90s.
I mean, that's true, but regardless, it's heavy, it's aggressive, it's awesome. Like, it's just really good emo violence. All three of their albums. Yeah, I don't know. Check out those. Also, let's see. I had probably one of the best doom metal records of the year from Icelandic band Null, or Zero as it's stylized in a lot of their stuff, which is kind of edgy, but at the same time, like, you know, kind of cool and simple. You just have a zero as your band logo.
Wait, what's the band called?
Null.
Null.
Well, it's unlike stuff like Metalum, it's zero, like the number zero.
This album.
Yeah. Their new release, Entity, came out about a month ago, and
I think AMG gave it a 4.
It's really, really good doom metal with some black metal influence in it.
As all good modern doom metal is.
Literally. So definitely check that one out. Kind of Mizmor-like, but at the same time, definitely leaning toward the more epic side of doom metal, like your Belows and your
Candlemass.
Yeah, your Candlemass too, stuff like that. Definitely cool. And then also, I want to mention the Vatican Shadow album because, yeah. So Dominic Furno, i.e. Prurient, legendary noisemaker extraordinaire, power electronics, you know, kind of the big guy, one of the big guys. His ambient techno project, Vatican Shadow, put out a new album last week that I think is pretty good.
I think it's just so boring.
Like, well, it's not like, okay, but it's a vibe. I'm not trying to be engaged by it. It's just, it's a vibe.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I feel like ambient's a really subjective like genre or pastiche.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've been listening to a lot of ambient recently because another one of my RYM friends, we'll talk about that soon, has been just kind of recommending the ambient and a bunch of electronic stuff.
Ambient schmambient, am I right?
We listen to metal here.
Excuse me, I'll have you know.
But yeah, that's mostly what I've been listening to.
All right, that was a perfect transition.
So yeah,
the focal point of this podcast, or this specific episode.
So, Sam, what do you think of Rate Your Music?
I think Rate Your Music is a wonderful way to gauge like the consensus opinions of like millennial music listeners.
Okay, I would agree.
I think it sort of skews things in interesting ways.
It does skew things in very interesting.
We got to explain what Rate Your Music is.
If you are listening to this and don't know what Rate Your Music is, type in rateyourmusic.com and you'll see.
It's like Metacritic, except exclusively for albums.
Yeah.
And it has pretty like a pretty expansive user base that likes to rank and review albums, and one of the best uses for it is you can just like sort like the highest rated albums of any given year or any given decade. And the topic of this week's is talking about the sort of interesting representation that underground metal gets in the yearly Rate Your Music charts, because
it is interesting.
It's so bizarre.
So I don't know if you go on the RYM all-time ranking, because that's one of the first places before Rate Your Music got updated into like what it is now, which is a much more clean design, like way back, like 5 years ago or whatever. And you type up like best albums ever, right? And you get all the Rolling Stone lists. But then you get this, this Rate Your Music where it has, what people are saying, who owns it, blah 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 blah, what their rating is, and all this stuff. And you have your Radioheads, your Beatles, your Pink Floyds, all that, right? But I think that RYM has a very particular affiliation with Mew and 4chan that I think is very important to its lifeblood.
I think that's important, but I think like someone spent a lot of time on Mew and 4chan, specifically if we're talking about the worlds of metal. Like all the highest rated RYM albums never get touched on 4chan. Like, if you look at, like, the general lists, like, you got Loveless, like, In the Airplane Over the Sea, Velvet Underground, and Nico, and those albums were all beloved on 4chan. But if you're talking about metal, it's all, like...
No, I would agree. I agree.
Yeah, and that's what, like, I guess I want to preface this by saying, like, if you were to walk up to someone, or I guess if you were to take a survey of, like, metalheads, and you were to, like, try to find out what the most popular albums of any given year are, like, you'd think it'd be like Slipknot, Disturbed, not necessarily the best music, but stuff that's popular and stuff that's beloved. Or like Dragon Force or whatever.
Sure.
But I think it's bizarre is that Rate Your Music kind of shows that like the internet, or at least like the enfranchised millennial music crowd, values very different things than you'd typically expect out of popular music.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was just looking at the all-time metal chart, and, like, that makes sense, because, like, your number one on RYM for just metal in general ever is Paranoid by Black Sabbath, which, by the way, that's 50 today, or, like, 54 days ago.
50 a few days ago, yeah.
That's pretty big news. But then you have, like, all the Metallica releases, all the big thrash releases from the late 80s and early 90s, your Death, your Tool, Opeth, Burzum, like the answers for like big metal, right? But
yep,
I don't know, when you start to dig into year by year, that's when it really gets kind of strange.
Yeah, so I thought eventually I kind of want to touch on how we live in a post-Deaf Heaven world, because I think that's an important.
Well, we can go to like the 2000s, best of 2000s metal versus like the best of 2000s. It's all
just black gaze.
No, well, yeah. So like your best of 2000s metal is as follows: Tool, Opeth, Electric Wizard, Converge, System of a Down, Deftones, Boris, Mastodon, Agalloch, Isis.
Yeah, these are all very expected names.
Yeah, Gojira, Immolation, Sleep, Bolt Thrower. So like these are all names that at least for like the average metal listener could go to a festival and see at least 3 of these groups there.
Yeah, they sort of represent like the mainstream of like music released during that time.
Right.
Like what's critically beloved, what's pretty popular.
Yeah.
Like if you go to a metal show and like be like, who here likes Isis? Every single person will raise their hand. Yeah. Like stuff like that.
Right.
But then you go to the 2010s, and it's a different story.
Yeah. You start with Deathspell Omega, Pericletus, which, I mean, I don't know. Deathspell Omega.
It's a good album.
Great album. But then you have Death Heaven with Sunbather, in 2013.
I think that's emblematic of the rest of the list.
Yeah, so from here, what happens is it just becomes so... I don't want to say based, but kind of based. Because, like, you look at it and you're like, these are not things that on this website, or on any website, you'd be like, okay, these are some cool picks. But at the same time, you continue to scroll and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense at all. Why is this one here? You know, next up is, after Sunbather, is Terminal Redux by Vector. And so for that, you're like, okay, yeah. Like, that's one of the best modern thrash albums.
And then you see the Murmur album.
Yeah, and then but the thing is like, everyone loved the Vector album.
Yeah, absolutely everyone.
Yeah. But then you go down and you find this Murmur that I have heard about but never listened to because it's literally nowhere.
It has like 100 plays on Bandcamp. It's atmospheric black metal ambient. I like, as someone who spends a lot of time, you know, trying to learn about metal and keep my finger on the pulse. Like, I've never heard it.
Right.
I've never seen it mentioned anywhere outside of RYM.
Yeah.
And it just kind of goes on like that. Like, you get your ones that make a lot of sense. Oh, an Altar of Plagues release. What's that band? Or like, oh, like, I don't know. It's so bizarre because it just bounces between like these landmark bands. Like, there are like 3 Deftone albums, and then I don't know. You'll see like, oh, Death Toll 80K. Like, and this album has 379 ratings, and for comparison, Sunbather has 14,263 ratings.
Right.
And so it sort of makes you wonder why these like underground darlings that like I haven't even heard of are represented alongside like these other kind of giants of the modern metal scene. And I think 2020 does a great job of showcasing that exact thing. Because if you go to the 2020 metal list, or actually, if you go to the 2020 all music list, forget metal. Aranzi Pazuzu's fantastic Mastar and Kinsey is number 7. And right below that is Paysage Divers Involved at number 8. And like, these albums are beating out like Mac Miller's album, The Strokes, Against All Logic, Denzel Curry, The Weeknd, or what. And that's ridiculous.
I mean, like, for us, I mean, that's great. I'm happy with that. But at the same time, it doesn't make any sense. Because you have Mac Miller's album with 7,500 ratings, where Involved has 2,500. And you jumped up to, you know, the top for, like, you know, Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters, you know, Pitchfork's new Big 10.
It's only okay.
The 13,000 ratings. I want to know, and I think they've released it somewhere, how they calculate it. Because I'm pretty sure they have a formula, right, that they do, where it's like, you take your rating and then you have to average it amongst amongst however many people were to do it, and the overall average rating is what gets displayed. But it's just really strange.
It's bizarre. It showcases like this weird underground bias that you really don't see anywhere else on the internet. And like, I think me and Adam sort of want to understand why it is that like these artsy black metal albums with zero melody that are very experimental are just outranking like modern rock giants like the Strokes. And it truly is phenomenal. Like, I'm still a little surprised.
And as I'm looking down this, of the things that are categorized as metal, there are 3 that are not black metal, and all of them either have the tag avant-garde or technical.
Yeah, so it's like, it's a very specific type of like pretentious white guy music. And I don't know. I guess I obviously this doesn't really represent like the larger metal landscape.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't even say it represents the major modern online millennial listening scape.
Yeah, because like I feel most people I know that like listen to music just kind of like do whatever on Spotify or whatever, and they don't really check out like an ASOC Trillium album because it's just not going to pop up in their recommendations.
Right.
They're going to be listening to like the bigger metal bands of the era or like stuff that's metal adjacent or whatnot. But oh my god, well, so. Oh man, I'm seeing Neptunian maximalism at the fourth highest ranked metal album. That album's amazing, but like, who listens to that?
I've met one other person that has listened to that album, and they're like, it's cool, but I don't know, like, if I like it, and it's just that's a very good album to look at. Because I don't think that people are really into avant-garde jazz as much anymore. I could be wrong. Don't hunt me down, jazz scene. At least not on these platforms like RYM. I do not expect to see that.
Yeah, or you mentioned Katira earlier. Like, this album is ranked number 7 best metal album of the year.
And then the other's 10th.
Yeah, and like, this one, number 7, Toda Historia Pelafrent, I'm sorry, has 88 ratings. Like, that's like 1/100th of the Fiona Apple ratings, and it's there, which it's so bizarre.
Yeah. Because most of these metal albums, as I'm going through, average around, like, 500, right? So, like, but then you have your comparison, and you look at those massive, records like the Fiona Apple one, or even in comparison to, like, the Paysage d'Hiver and the Oronzi Pazuzu, those have upwards of 3,000-4,000 ratings compared to the, the dirt that exists on the rest of the metal scene here.
So, Adam, why do you think this is? Because I have a few theories of my own.
I think it's honestly a weird amalgamation because I use RYM. I'm not afraid to say it. I use it for categorizing, and I do also put all of the PMMetalGuide things into RYM. I put all the ratings and the reviews on there, with attribution and all that, so they can direct back to our website. But but I don't think that's me skewing the bias. Because, like, when I did the Boris review, the Boris No review, that album is holding a 3.57, right? I gave it a 4. So, we're around the same platform. But I don't... It's just... This doesn't give any indication on what metal is doing right now.
Yeah, like all these albums that are ranking super highly are definitely outliers. Like, I think Oronzi Pazuzu, which hold the highest ranking metal album right now, are like the definition of an outlier band.
Yeah.
It's this bizarre like amalgamation of desperate genres from Finland, and like realistically it's just not commercial in any way.
No, not in the slightest. Sure, you're on Nuclear Blast, but that doesn't mean anything. So isn't like Portal.
Yeah, and then you follow that with Involved, and Involved's pretty beloved in the modern metal underground, but it's at the same time it's a 2 hour and 10 minute long atmospheric black metal release with not a single discernible like melody.
Yeah, no.
And I love that stuff, but I feel like most metal listeners don't.
Do not. I think if you go down, truly the first album that I'm like, okay, you've got me, is the Boris album, the Haken album, the Napalm Death. And Napalm Death is at 23. So there
what
are...
What do you mean as in you've got me? Oh, as like in like those, why they're big.
Like those, you can get like why those ones are on this list. Like, yes, Haken, bam, they're landmark prog metal band that like are big in the metal world. Boris is obviously huge in everyone's world, and they deserve to be up high. Napalm Death, right? They've been around for 40 years.
The Mick Gordon soundtrack makes a lot of sense too. The Doom soundtrack, that album's huge.
Right. These are, but the majority of it is so not that.
Yeah, the majority of it is like your Katairas, your Neptunian maximalism. It's very bizarre music made for like a very small niche. And that is generally like academics that live in Brooklyn and run metal blogs.
Which, for the record, we agree with, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that those 3 albums are probably at least the top 5 albums on this list are like at least in I think our final list. I could argue about Neptunian maximalism, but we love
PMMetalGuide loves these albums. Like if you whip out the document where we try to calculate the best album of the year. Yeah. Like most of these albums that are up here are on the list somewhere because they're phenomenal.
Yeah, they are.
Like they're all like 9s, 8s, and 10s. Like I think the Ulcerate album is basically perfect.
Right. It's but we're not we're not the like. It's weird to see this dictate what is the best metal album of the year. That's the weirdest thing to me.
It's bizarre because I think in the past Rolling Stone's been a good way of just looking at what the consensus is because they normally include a lot of big industry bands.
I'm gonna go on the Loudwire list.
Loudwire is probably a better indicator.
And I want to find one album that is on this top 40 in there. All right, I'm currently scrolling and we haven't hit it yet. The first one is Haken's Virus, which we said deserves to be on there.
Yeah, that Haken are a pretty big prog metal band.
The Doom Eternal soundtrack as well.
Yeah, Doom Eternal is honestly, I think the Doom soundtrack might be one of the more important modern metal albums for a lot of reasons, but
that's another podcast topic.
That's enough. All I'm saying is I have a lot of friends that normally don't listen to metal that are like, oh my god, I love the Doom soundtrack.
Yeah. And the only other one that is on there is the collab of Mare Cognitum and Spectral Lore.
But that album is sort of that. It's been put on a pedestal and for good reason.
Yes, well, yeah, I agree. But that's 3 out of 40 at the very least.
Yeah, and Loudwire typically aims for an older, the boomer metal generation, if you will.
Yeah, I would say that the albums on that list, which are Ozzy Osbourne, My Dying Bride, Lamb of God,
yeah, it's a lot more emblematic of what you'd consider the metal public to listen to.
So, do you think that this is a bad sign or a good sign?
Well, I think that's a loaded question, and I want to start out by positing why I think this is the case.
Oh yeah, please.
So, I think it all sort of comes back into the fact that Pitchfork gave a 9.2 or 9.3 to Sunbather way back in 2013.
Sure.
And that sort of began the hipster black metal discussion. And I think where we are now is sort of the logical conclusion of that. I think, Pitchfork giving that rating sort of signaled to a certain number of their readers or their viewership that were a fan of weirder music to check out some more interesting things that were happening in the metal underground. And I think Deaf Heaven and a lot of the bands that have followed after them are important members and bridging the gap between indie fans and metal fans. And that's almost a separate podcast in general, but I think it's important to note that we do live in a post Deaf Heaven world where it's a lot of the kids coming up nowadays or a lot of music fans that are younger really aren't afraid to dip their toes into every scene at once because we have the internet, we can listen to virtually anything, and critically acclaimed art is gonna be good, for a lot of reasons.
No, I agree.
And I think with the RYM chart, it's sort of a cyclical thing. and that all the highest reviewed albums from like the underground review sites, from like Invisible Oranges or Toilet of Hell or Stereo Gum's Black Market or whatever, all the highest reviewed from those go on to get talked about by, you know, the passing indie fans that just kind of are checking to see whatever the buzz is and whatever music. And so they end up checking out, you know, all these critically acclaimed albums that metal fans really like, and then listening to it. And then whether, you know, at the end of the day, the music is just good. It's really well done for a number of reasons. And sort of them leaving their rating is the natural progression that we see. But at the same time, I think like it's also all the metal guys and the underground metal fans that do listen to everything, and they've sort of decided that this is the cream of the crop and we're going to rate this incredibly highly.
Sure.
And that's why, you know, you see all these albums up high, and then you see like Katara with 88 reviews or whatever. And it might just be that the people that listen to absolutely everything deem that to be incredible, and that's why it's there, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then that it sort of creates a cycle where the people who are just sort of passing by and want to see what's going on in metal see these really highly rated albums, and they decide to listen to it.
Right.
And then they rate them highly, and then the people that are really into metal and also just sort of want to see what's best see these, and then they rate them highly. And so it's like sort of a cyclical nature. But I really do think it's a combination of like indie fans or just people that listen to music in general, like dipping their toe in and listening to one or two of these albums and saying, oh yeah, this is really good. Right. And then, you know, all the blogs, all the tastemakers and all the metal fans also deciding these are really good. And that's why we see like this very skewed perception of like very artsy out there, you know, difficult metal albums in the top.
Right. Yeah. No, I can totally agree with that. And it's probably not too far from the truth. Because, I mean, like, we're falling into the trap.
Yeah, like we're very much falling into the trap, you know. Where if you look at all the release, like me and Adam try to do our best to listen to a fair amount of music that comes out. And at the end of the day, we're gonna be repping like a lot of these albums in the RYM chart just because they're really amazing.
Yeah, it's weird because usually with stuff like this, because I remember when I was like a little younger, still breaking into the scene really, and you'd see something like RYM and you'd be like, oh, but like don't take that for its word though, because like that's just like some people's opinion. Which,
yeah, it really doesn't show off like the breadth of the underground as a whole.
Yeah, and I mean I think that goes true for a lot of the major metal publications. Services, because you know, like we saw that Loudwire list, you know, clearly you can just have two completely separate scenes, one that's dominated by the indie heads and, you know, people that listen to everything, and people that have been listening to the genre for 40 years and don't really want anything to actually change and are just, you know, playing the same stuff over and over again. So I think
is it all media bias?
I mean, it kind of is all media bias, but at the same time, like, you know, one of these bands will get big, you know. I
mean, Oranzi Pazuzu are already kind of huge.
Yeah, exactly.
And like Ulcerator have been underground legends for a while.
Right.
I can't really say the same for any of the others, but
yeah. It's only about time before something just makes a big switch. You know, metalcore has been dominating the last 20 years of music, and I think that's going to change at some point soon.
I mean, I feel like Oranzi Pazuzu aren't going to be the next As I Lay Dying.
I don't think so either, but you never know. You know, I reviewed that album for the blog, and that's not an accessible album. That's not one thing you can just dive into with like, oh, I just came off of the new
new Taylor Swift album.
Yeah, the new Taylor Swift album. Let's go right in. Oh, what's this? Yeah. Fiona Apple was cool. Let's dive into the star.
Oh, let's listen. Yeah, let's listen to Ulcerate, where it's an hour and 10 minutes. There's not a single clean vocal. All this like. At the end of the day, it's just not accessible music, and that's fine because it doesn't need to be. But it's so bizarre that like RYM, which is sort of seen as just a great a great way to view like the collective music scene and like what people think. It's so bizarre that it showcases such a niche.
Yeah.
And like I want to say like I think like right now, all things considered, my favorite album of the year is the Protest the Hero album, Palimpsest. I think it's awesome. It's super fun. I love it. I enjoy it every time I listen to it. But you don't really see stuff like that or like the more personalized tastes represented because it's just sort of consensus like critical darlings.
Right.
And I think that's, I think that sort of lacks.
I think it can be good and bad.
Yeah, I agree. Like I know in certain scenes, like the Ulthar album, which is like in the 50s, is pretty beloved. I know Poppy's pretty beloved. I know Loathe is absolutely loved by the gent kids right now. But I think at the end of the day, like modern metal underground is just, it's so damn vast and there's so many releases and there's so many different subgenres.
Yeah.
And
it's so really weird because there's just a lot of ways to go. Because even like a new John Petrucci album came out like 3 weeks ago, but I haven't even heard about it.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't heard about it.
I saw a bunch of like things pop up my feed where it's like John Petrucci shreds out to his new solo album,
and I'm sure that's the case. But at the same time,
oh yeah, Fintroll just dropped a new album.
Yeah, Fintroll just dropped a new album.
Apparently, it's good.
I've heard. I don't know.
I thing is, I don't necessarily think this is an issue. Like,
it's
if
just,
anything,
it is something to consider with great detail. Because this is a very nice way. I mean, I think rate your music is a very good way to categorize music. I think it has a lot more good than bad for the music world as a whole. In this particular case, I think that this year is probably the most emblematic of it so far, just because we've had so many releases in other genres that have been so, like, highly rated. And to see these, like, penetrate that is definitely a weird thing.
Yeah, it's just sort of bizarre. I mean, I don't know, let's say I'm 15 and I like the new Scarlord song or whatever, and you're like, you know what, I want to listen to metal, and so you go on RYM to try to get a better understanding of the genre, and then you start listening to Neptunian Maximalism. You're like, oh wow, I'm never touching this again.
Because even like the top 3 albums from last year, or top 4, you have Blood Incantation, right?
Yep.
Cult of Luna.
Yep.
King Gizzard. And Liturgy. Like, that is a normal list you'd expect from something like RYM.
Yeah, no, I mean, those are all those make perfect sense.
Yeah, it's just I honestly think Fiona Apple threw everything out of balance, but that's another conversation.
Hey, Adam, I'll have you know, for 2019, number 5 is Serpent Column. I don't know if you've ever listened to Serpent Column, but that album is far from accessible.
I agree with you, but that's like a good example, because even as you go on, like Magua makes sense, Esoteric makes sense, Blue Down Nord makes sense, Spell Omega makes sense. I mean, Wilderun kind of makes sense, but
Wilderun was absolutely beloved by like AMG, which is the biggest metal blog ever. So
I know, but like, you see a pattern of groups you've heard before. Insomnia,
yeah, it's generally like well-loved groups.
Yeah,
in between like the bizarre albums that 3 people have listened to.
Right. It's just weird.
So why is it that Anthony Fantano only reviews the highly rated RYM albums?
Why do you mean? Because he's a stan, dude. He's an RYM stan.
Damn.
Well, he hasn't reviewed the All Straight album. He hasn't reviewed the...
He did a Why You Know review, and he said, this is good music, but it's just not for me.
That's classic.
Yeah, see, this Tomb Mold album, it's good. It's very meat and potatoes death metal.
I would agree with that.
I still can't believe he gave Involved a 3.
I don't think anyone can forget that he gave Involved a 3. I mean, I have it rated as at least... I have it rated as a 5.
Oh, I was gonna say it's like a strong 8 for me.
No, I would agree, but when I initially rated it on on that blog post, I gave it a 10 because I do feel like it is a stunning piece of art.
But, I agree. I think it's honestly like it's the furthest evolution of like that Burzum school of atmospheric black metal. Yeah, I mean, and like I'm sure we could go through basically every release in this top 20 and agree like, oh yeah, that album's amazing. So, I don't know. I think it's an interesting phenomenon, and I haven't seen anyone really mention it.
Well, this is a great place to start. And I mean, who knows? Next year it could be even worse.
I suspect that as like, I mean, the death of the scene is also another podcast, but like, I don't know. We definitely live in the golden age of like the modern musical underground, and the fact that like every major genre is so, all the fans of the major genres, I should say, are so incestuous that like they're gonna be listening to basically everything that's highly rated by a large amount of people. That's why, I'll listen to 100 Gex tomorrow when I wake up and listen to ASOC Trillium later in the day,
Yeah. I get it. All right. Good. Well,
Wonderful.
I think we're going to wrap up with some upcoming releases and news, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
oh gosh, dude, don't make me go on Metal Sucks and sort by popular.
For me, what do we want to do first? Upcoming albums, or
we can do a combination of the two.
Okay. I've heard the new Prescription album, which is this blackened death metal band that I think is releasing their debut. I could be wrong. I'm gonna cross-reference.
Wait, you're gonna start off with the new Prescription and avoid the new Deftones album this Friday?
Well, all right. Calm down, man. Look. All right, new Deftones this Friday. Big album.
Big. The two singles are amazing.
They're pretty good.
This guy.
They're pretty good. I think if Ohms is the closer, I'm scared.
Shut up, Adam. You think Adrenaline's the best Deftones album?
I do not. That is slander. Yeah, Deftones. Obviously, that's huge news. Major mega band from 90s and early 2000s.
I feel like most people know who Deftones are.
Yeah, we don't have to explain that. But yes, Prescription. I hear that album's pretty good. Black and death metal from Finland. It's super group. It'll be cool. Let's see. Yeah, cool. New Ocean. The Ocean comes out this week too.
Phanerozoic 2 Mesos. I can't pronounce it.
It's Phanerozoic 2 Mesozoic Cenozoic.
Well, look at you.
Progressive sludge metal.
Look, The Ocean have never disappointed. I don't expect them to disappoint now.
No, yeah. I don't think they will either. New Uada too. I think that's melodic black. It's melodic black metal from Portland. Their third album, Gin, comes out this Friday.
Coincidentally called Gin.
Yeah, Gin. Uada is pretty cool. Their last album was very good.
Yeah, it's like Migwa, but with clean choruses.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Are they Polish or are they American?
No, they're American.
They sound Polish.
Dude, look, everyone's just trying to be Migwa, and it's fine. We get it. I don't know. Like, should we just tackle stuff that's happening this coming week? Or should we go to the future?
Well, I mean, assuming we're recording one of these next week, it sort of makes sense that we just tackle this week.
All right, that's fair.
I mean, this is a pretty amazing fall, as every fall is for metal.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
I can't even begin to count how many great albums. Like I know you mentioned the Sumac one earlier.
Shh, that's next week. That's the week after. We can't talk about that one yet.
All right. Well, I don't know. Like this is the best time to be a metal fan. Like an amazing album gets released every other week, and they're all good.
Yeah. Definitely from the past week, as I've listened to a few of this stuff that's come out. I think from last week, the other album that I haven't talked about in any capacity today is the Fires in the Distance, which is making like huge headway with
which one is that?
it's melodic death doom from Connecticut, and everyone's like, oh my god, this is like the next shit, I can't remember what people were saying. They're saying I was looking at Metal Sucks earlier today, and they were saying, and I'm gonna try and find this article very quickly before this peters out into something.
I wish you didn't unironically say that you were browsing Metal Sucks, because I am too, to look at news stories.
Yes. So everyone is basically calling them the new Omnium Gatherum Insomnium and stuff like that. I played.
Wait, I don't like that music. Woo.
All right. Well, I like Insomnium for the most part, and I played one of their tracks on my show yesterday, and it was pretty cool. There were synth passages in it, which I thought were pretty unique for that genre. But and I mean like really synth passages, not like I'll throw synth on a mellow death riff and call it a day.
hey.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know Pussifer announced.
Yeah, they announced their new album, 2, which I was going to mention, which I thought was pretty awesome. I, however, have not been the biggest fan of the singles. I like the newest one more so than the first one. I like
the first one's on the album. I think that was just a single.
Just a single. I think the Underwhelming is good, but I'm also scared a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had this convo before, but Pussifer is by far the best MJK project post 2001.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
Like, new Tool album is like a 5, and new APC is like a 2. So hopefully new Pussifer is better than that.
Better than that, yeah. We hope.
I have some utterly pedantic news stories that I'm amazed these people, like, why... Why do these websites cover stuff like this?
Like what?
Like, strippers Michael Sweet says Cardi B's WAP is shit. Like, what? Why does that matter?
Because what does Corey Taylor have to say this week?
Dude, what does Corey Taylor think about it, honestly?
What does Corey Taylor think? That's why, Sam.
The sluggish vocalist might have permanent vocal damage because of COVID.
I saw that.
That sucks.
That's horrible. Because he's a good low growler.
He's an amazing vocalist.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's not dead.
Yeah.
New Pallbearer song.
Yep. They have a new album coming out. I think it's in a month or 2.
Will it be better than Heartless? Probably.
Probably.
Will it be better than their 24 or 15 album?
Probably not.
I
saw... go on Fear Factor.
Oh, dude, the Fear Factory shit is so funny.
Yes.
Like, how... It's so bad.
Look, man.
Like... When did Fear Factory last release like any music that was better than a 4 out of 10?
I don't know.
1992? I don't know, man. Like, it's hysterical because I know virtually nothing about this group other than the fact that these guys hate each other, and that Dino, who's kind of like a guitar legend, started like a GoFundMe to fund their new album, and then that fell through. And then it was to fund the legal dispute, which is stopping them from releasing a new album. I don't know. It's just so messy.
I guess when you're a big band from the 20th century, you still have legal issues to fucking go off of. Like, because you don't even, like, even now, I don't hear about shit like label. Like, you do hear shit of labels fucking people over, but, like, not in the way that, like, you did before 2005. You know, because you had the whole Volcano thing with Tool. You have literally everyone with Metallica and, like, Judas Priest.
You have everyone that ever signed to Victory Records.
Yeah, like, but you just don't hear about that shit anymore. Which is
I mean, most bands sign to either like chill underground labels where the people running them are just metal fans,
right? Or
like self-release. I don't know. The internet really changed everything.
I agree.
Like,
totally agree.
Actually, I remember there was some like relapse or nuclear blast drama a few weeks ago.
Well,
Really?
what the hell just got shut down because the guy got accused of something bad. Big.
Sounds like.
It was the Rolo Tomasi label.
Oh yes, was that Burger Records? No, Burger Records was
No.
earlier this summer.
No, they were on. Hold on. Stand by.
Wait just 1 second.
They were on Holy Roar.
Ah,
And
well, they're
Holy
like
Roar.
they're like an indie label though from England. I thought.
That's not true. They have Conjurers on Holy Roar. Black Mass is on Holy Roar.
I'm sorry.
A few others. Boss Kelloid. They're
Oh,
there too.
there you go.
Mole.
I don't look, Adam. I don't know about you, but I'm pumped to hear the new Jared Dines
Stop.
Howard Jones
We're out.
album.
No, stop. Do not.
Oh my
do
god.
not.
It's just this stuff. Like, who cares about any of this stuff?
I don't know. I've seen a few things. Like a while back, like a few months, earlier, beginning of the month, I saw something where performing visas are more expensive now. Fun fact for international artists in the U.S. They're more, and it's not even like just slightly more expensive. Like 50% increase on.
That's ridiculous.
during visas. Yeah,
we got to talk about how COVID has just killed the music industry.
Yeah,
And
that's
how-
another podcast.
Oh my god.
Another podcast.
Okay, I will say what's hysterical is seeing like sort of like, I don't know if boomer's the right term. I guess the Gen X like metal bands like do live streams. Like Corey Taylor announced a live stream. I know, very exciting. And like the promotional material behind it is hysterical.
God, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm still sad that Riley's dead, man.
Dude, we should be. We should be.
Well, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know. Too much. But anyway. Yeah, I don't know. We'll be back talking about something next week.
Yeah.
At some
We
point.
certainly. Oh my. Okay. One last thing that I think is funny. Chad Kroger is a huge Slayer fan.
Of course.
We got to get better news stories for next
Oh,
week.
actually,
I feel like
wait. I have two news stories. Mastodon's working on a new album,
that's exciting.
and Frontier just finished their third album.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's actually kind of exciting.
I saw that on their Facebook. They just finished vocal tracking. So, yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take you 2021. Good start to the year.
Like, I don't know, Adam. I think, do you know what's important? Is we got to rank Metallica members' Zoom backgrounds.
And with that, I think that's where we should end the podcast.
I agree. Well, thanks for listening. Whenever this gets released, it'll probably be a weekly release date that we'll start dropping them on.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more to come. I have been Sam.
This is Adam. You're listening to PM Metal Guide podcast that is called that for the time being.
Yes, sirree.